My name is Vale Etho Kresh, and for 41 cycles I have been a cartographer of the Threnavos Guild, which means I have spent my life drawing lines that other people cross without asking why they are there. Most lines are simple. A trade lane, a debris field, a border drawn after a war nobody living remembers starting. I have drawn thousands of them, and I remember almost none. Nine species had sent a joint expedition past the edge of what the old charts called the threshold band, the wide gray margin, where our maps simply stop describing anything and start describing absence instead. The expedition carried envoys, surveyors, a historian from the Caldreni reliquary, and enough drive capacity to return inside of 4 months. It did not return inside of 4 months. It did not return at all. No wreckage, no beacon, no final transmission, panicked or otherwise. And that absence is the part the survey office wanted erased from the public record. Because an absence with no signal attached to it is somehow more frightening than a scream would have been. A scream tells you something happened. Silence tells you that whatever happened did not think the rest of us were worth a warning. I was given the unedited file because someone in the guild's upper chapter decided I had earned it, or because no one else wanted to be the one who read it first. The file was old in the way only guild files are old, built in layers, each cartographer before me adding a note, a correction, a single sentence appended to whoever came after. The earliest entry was nearly 900 cycles old, written by a cartographer named HFY Ren, in handwriting so careful it looked etched rather than written. HFY's entry was the one nobody shows the apprentices. She had been assigned to chart the same threshold band 3 cycles after the first survey teams ever returned from it. 3 of them, out of a fleet of 11, and not one of the 3 would speak about what they had seen beyond a single repeated phrase, which HFY recorded faithfully, and then asked the guild to never repeat aloud again. I will not repeat it either. It is enough to say that it was not a threat. It was an apology. 3 survivors out of 11 ships, and what they brought back was not a warning to stay away. It was regret that anyone had gone at all, as if they were already mourning the part of themselves that had crossed the line and not come back whole. HFY drew the first version of the border that cycle. Her note, appended at the bottom of the survey, read, "I have drawn this line not because I know what lives past it, but because I have met the survivors of finding out, and they are worse off than the dead." Every cartographer since has copied that line forward, generation after generation, the way a scar gets passed down a family without anyone explaining the wound. I went looking for what HFY had actually seen, underneath the official summary, because I am a cartographer, and we are constitutionally incapable of leaving a blank space alone. There was more, buried 6 archival layers down, in a format so old the guild had to rebuild a reader just to open it. It was not a description of a creature, or a weapon, or a fleet. It was a transcript of one of the 3 survivors, recorded by a guild interviewer, whose name had been struck from the record entirely, which the guild only does when the interviewer requests it themselves. The survivor, species redacted, rank redacted, only the words kept, said that they had gone in expecting a fight and found a funeral instead. Not their funeral. Not even a funeral for the dead. A funeral for an idea. The idea that whatever lived past that line could be reasoned with, negotiated with, surveyed and catalogued and slotted into a database alongside everyone else's empires. They said the humans they encountered, if humans is even the right word for what they were by then, did not attack the survey ships. They did not need to. They simply stood at the edge of where their territory began and made it clear, without a single weapon raised, that the 11 ships had already lost something, just by arriving, and that the loss could not be returned to them. The interviewer had asked what, specifically, the humans had done. The survivor's answer, kept verbatim across 900 cycles of careful copying, was this: they let us leave. That was the whole of it. They let us leave, and somehow that was worse than if they hadn't. The interviewer pressed further, the transcript shows, asking whether the survivor meant they had been escorted out under guard, or warned off with weapons trained on their hull, or given some ultimatum to carry home. The survivor said no to all three, and the no is recorded 3 separate times, as if the interviewer kept hoping a different answer would surface on the 4th attempt. No guard, no weapons raised, no ultimatum spoken aloud. Only a single figure, unarmored, standing at what the survivor called the threshold of their own dwelling, watching the ships turn and go, the way a person watches weather pass over land they have already decided not to leave. The survivor added one more line before the transcript ends, a line HFY underlined twice in her own copy, hard enough that the underline tore through to the page beneath it. They did not look like they had won anything. They looked like they had stopped counting how many times they'd had to do this. I sat with that for longer than I should admit. A cartographer's job is to translate the unknown into something that can be planned around. I could not translate this. I could only copy it forward, the way HFY had, and add my own line beneath hers. The Concord Survey Office wanted the new expedition's disappearance filed as a navigational failure. Drive malfunction, most likely. Possibly a threshold band anomaly. Nothing requiring further inquiry. I refused to file it that way, not because I had proof otherwise, but because 900 cycles of survivors had never once described a malfunction. They described being permitted to live, and being unable to live easily with that permission afterward. I redrew the border myself, the night the request came in. I did not narrow it. I widened it, past every prior cartographer's margin, until the threshold band swallowed 2 more sectors that had never shown a single anomalous reading in recorded history. The chapter elders asked me to justify the expansion. I told them the truth, that I had no data to justify it, only a pattern, and that the pattern was 900 cycles long, and had never once been wrong in the direction of underestimating what waited past the line. The chapter elders asked me to justify the expansion. I told them the truth, that I had no data to justify it, only a pattern, and that the pattern was 900 cycles long, and had never once been wrong in the direction of underestimating what waited past the line. One elder, an old Vaith surveyor named Corso, who had spent 2 centuries arguing that fear was simply unmapped territory waiting for better instruments, asked whether I had considered that the silence itself might be the anomaly, that 900 cycles of careful avoidance had perhaps taught the guild to see a monster in an empty room. I told him I had considered it. I told him that every cartographer who had considered it before me had eventually gone looking for the room's true emptiness, and that none of those cartographers had filed a follow-up report. He had no answer to that. Nobody on the chapter ever does. They approved it without further argument. Nobody on the chapter wanted to be the dissenting vote on a question that the record had already answered 11 times over. 11 crossings, 11 silences, and now a 12th. I sealed the sector designation myself, in the old format, the one reserved for borders that the guild does not expect to ever revise again. I wrote only the coordinates, the date, and beneath it, in the same careful hand, HFY must have used 900 cycles before me. A single line, for whoever opens this file next. I have drawn this line for the same reason as the one before me. Not because of what waits past it. Because of what comes back, if it comes back at all. The chart is filed, the sector is closed. Whatever happened to 9 envoys and a historian from the Caldreni reliquary will never appear in any public record I have access to, and I have made certain my apprentices will not go looking for it the way I did, because I know now what HFY must have known when she struck her own interviewer's name from the file. Some lines are drawn to keep people out. This one was drawn to keep them from finding out what it costs to be let back in.